Hey family, it is so good to be with you this morning. Isaiah did an incredible job this week, and so we want to talk a little bit more about truth, absolute truth, and how that impacts our life.
Again, just want to reiterate that we're saying absolute truth is not an ideology, it's not a theology, it's not anyology, it's not a litany of rules. Absolute truth is a person, right? It is Jesus, it is God.
Yeah.
And that knowing it means knowing Him in a relationship.
Wow.
So I think that's first really important to say. This is what the definition of what we're talking about, because we see that as absolute. That is something, He is concrete, He is unchanging, and yet there is a mystery to Him that we'll never understand everything about Him. So that's a fun thing to hold in balance of like,
Tension, yeah.
if I'm never going to fully understand God and yet He is my source of absolute truth, like how do I have both? And that's part of what we talked about, but I think it's really important that we understand that that's what we're talking about, because truth has become something that's debated, especially in the past, 50 years, 60 years. So for most people watching this, most of your life, if not all of it, right? Truth has become something that's very relative to people, especially in Western culture.
And it also, honestly, can become something that's a little bit scary. Like, I have to be an expert on what the truth is. And I think the exciting thing is you don't.
Right.
You just have to get to know Jesus.
Right.
And like, if I have to be an expert on what's good or bad or right or wrong, like, we're going to make mistakes.
And there's so much weight put on that.
Yeah.
Because in today's age of everything being available, you have to be able to defend, have all the information, all the proof that what you believe is true. And the point is, like, it's not about defending, man's ways, man's wisdom isn't the way that we're trying to defend truth. Truth is God, and I'm doing my best to know Him.
Yeah.
Am I going to make mistakes? Yes. Even I,
Yes.
pastor, right? Like, we also don't know God perfectly. So, like, we're going to have things that we think are true, that we, have as something that might even be foundational to us, that God's like, that's not a good foundation. Like, that's not actually me. That was a truth built on what you learned when you were young, or what you learned from your parents. And it's like, I really have to give up my way in order to submit to His.
That's so good. That's so true. That's so real. And it's important that you remember that your truth, these pillars of your theology, have to be submitted to your relationship with God.
Yeah. And so it's something we need. You need to have an absolute truth. You need to have a source that isn't changing, because although God might change your understanding of Him, or what you have is what you thought were foundational, right? Like, if He is the source, it's unchanging. Whereas if you don't have an absolute, then you're able to be swayed all the time, right? Like, if there's anybody who can present a better argument, you're willing to change. And that's not necessarily bad to be teachable, but it is bad to not have a foundation of what truth is for you.
Yes, I will always believe that God is good no matter what anyone says to me.
Right.
My perspective on what His goodness looks like might change. The way that His goodness impacts my life might change. There's a whole lot of things that can change, but what is never going to change is that God is good.
Right. God is love.
Yes.
He's loving. Jesus died for all sin. Like, these are foundational things that aren't going to change. Now, what does it mean? What is sin exactly? What is Him dying? How do I accept it? Like, those things might not be as concrete, but like, there are things that don't change, and things about God that we know to be true because He told us.
That's right.
It's very clear.
Yeah.
Where there's other things that aren't as clear, and that means that the relationship with Him is going to lead the way in making clarity happen in those areas.
And I think the exciting and important thing for us to remember is even something as concrete as God is good or God is love is not what sets you free.
Right.
God sets you free. There is no freedom in knowing that God is good. The freedom is in the goodness of God.
Right.
There's no freedom in knowing that God is love. You have to experience His love in order for it to set you free. And so you need to know those things in order to know that those are things you can have.
Right.
But knowing that God is good and that He is love is not what sets you free. That's not the truth we're talking about.
Right. When it says the truth will set you free, men like to interpret that as, I need to know what the truth is, and that's going to make me free. And it's like, no, the truth, Him, the relationship with Him is what's going to set you free. The encounters with Him is what's going to set you free. So relationship with Him is what we pursue when we're pursuing truth, not understanding.
Yes.
We're not supposed to lean on our understanding. Our understanding is always going to be incomplete. So that's not what should set me free. What sets me free is Him.
Wow, that's so good. I was having a conversation with someone last week about the way that we interact with God. And they were coming after God, or not coming after God, they were coming into their relationship with God as adults. And I think that sometimes we think that that's how we're supposed to relate to God.
Right.
But he's pretty clear that we're supposed to come to him as children. And it's important that we remember that this relationship with God is not altruistic on our behalf. Like, we're not these incredible people that are choosing to have a relationship with God just because he's God and for no other reason. No, it says we love him because he loved us first.
Right.
We're supposed to approach him as children who love the person that treats them the best.
It should be a response.
This is a response to how good he is,
Yeah.
how much he loves us. It's a response to his pursuit for us. And so everything that we do from this point on should be out of the overflow of experiencing how incredibly good God is, how much he loves us, how much he cares about us. If you're not responding to his love, it just means you need to experience more of it. Like, that's the
Right.
thing we're pursuing.
So the invitation is to know truth more,
Yeah.
right? The absolute truth is God, and you have an opportunity to know him. He wants to know you. And so you have a chance to get to know what is true and be set free from knowing him more.